Multiplication and division of integers. Okay, looking at the rules of multiplication and division. If you have the same signs, then your quotient or product will be positive. So that's having two positives or two negatives. Now when you're dealing with more than one, two, or three integers, if you have an even number of integers, an even number of negative integers, then you'll also be all positive. Likewise, if the signs are different, then in multiplication, you're multiplying two that are different. Your signs will be different. So look at this one. If you're two opposites, they're both opposite of each other. They don't like each other, so they're negative people. But if you have two positives and two negatives, think of those as being happy people. So they're positive people. So you can kind of think of the differences in the opposites that they have. The different signs that we were shown here, that's what's going to happen when you get a negative number. But the different signs are also on those here. So again, two positives when you're dividing, it will give you a positive. Two negatives will give you a positive. So two that have the same sign are happy. And two that are opposite signs, different signs, they're unhappy. So you can think of it like that. Okay, let's go to example number 1. If you've got a -3 and a -4, well, it's the same sign, so we know that we're going to have a positive here. But it's also multiplying two negatives. It gets us that positive 12. All right, look at number 2. Here's where we can look at if you have a negative or an odd number of negative integers. Well, here's a negative, and here's a negative. That's 3 negative integers. Because 3 is an odd number, you have an odd number, then you know your answer is going to be negative. A -5 and a +4, we'll do order of operation from left to right, would give you a positive 20. Because they're the same sign, they're happy, and so positive people times 20. 20 times 2 gives you 40, and 40, got to bring down that -1, times a -1 gives you the -40. All right, look at number 3. This is division. The signs are different, opposite each other, so we know it's negative, and 18 divided by 9 is a -2. Opposites are different. The two signs are different. This division bar here means to divide. This is the numerator divided by the denominator. -42 divided by 6 is a -7. Okay, next page. Look at number 5. -18 divided by a -8 divided by a -18. Well, the signs are the same, so we know it's positive. You think what number would be divisible by both, and that would be a 2. So if you divide both of these by 2, that's going to end up being, well, let's not write our positive just yet, because if you do the division across, that's actually going to be a -4. And that would be -18 divided by 2 is a -9. Here's where we're continuing to look for two that are the same, so they're going to be positive. And so this becomes, what was divisible? There's nothing divisible by both except 1. So if you divide both of these by 1, then your answer is positive 4 9ths. Number 6. You've got 24 times a -1 divided by 8. Always think of a whole number in its fraction form when multiplying by a fraction. 24 times a -1 is a -24. The signs are opposite. over 1 times 8, which is 8. The signs are different. It's negative 3. All right, look at number 7. When you have several here, we can look at two things. Earlier in the looking at the rules, it said the numbers of negatives being odd and even. Well, if you have a -1 here and a -36 here, that's an even number of negative integers. So that's going to leave us with a positive answer. So we know in the end we're going to have a positive answer for this. Now first let's look at the -36 as being a whole number. That'll just make it easier when you're multiplying. So if you multiply across, I'm going to just kind of show this with some colors here. You're going to be multiplying all three of these integers. And when you're multiplying the denominator, pick a different color for this one, you're going to be multiplying all three of these integers. So I know I've kind of made this quite colorful, but let's just multiply across. If you've got a -1 times 1 times a -36, well, we've already determined it's an even number of negative integers, and that's just multiplying by 36. And then across down, 3 times 2 is 6, 6 times 1 is 6. 36 divided by 6 would be, whoops, there's going to be 6. So 6 would be your answer here. Okay, look at number 8. Again, 8 is a whole number. Let's put it over 1, make it a common to multiply to cross. But be careful here. We're not actually multiplying. You've got to remember here that you're looking at division. So in earlier years you may have learned that when you're dividing two fractions, you take the reciprocal of the second number. So you're going to leave the 8 over 1, but you're now multiplying this by 2 over a -1. So 8 times 2 is 16. 1 times a -1, those are different signs, so that would be a -1. Your final answer for this would be -16. Two opposites signs make negative. Okay, look at number 9, a little tricky here. You've got to be careful in knowing that this line right here becomes the division. So that's like you are dividing. So again, if we just look at the numerator by itself, numerator being that on top, then if we look at this by itself, that would be a -6 over 1. That's what I'm looking at, just what's in the numerator. All of that, now that we know we have to flip the signs, this has to be flipped. So if we're going to flip the signs, this now is being multiplied by, you can assign that negative to either the top numerator or the denominator. I'm going to go ahead and just assign it to the top, because notice that's making that look like the exact same fraction that we're going to be multiplying. So 2 of the same sign would give us a positive 36. And that would be your answer for that one. Okay, number 10. Again, we're dealing with, right here, division. So we're going to flip the second number and multiply. So let's write this down again. -1/4 times 12 over 1. If you're multiplying across, and the signs are different, so that's going to be a -12. 4 times 1 is just 4. You have different signs here in your division. -12 divided by 4 is a -3. Now try some on your own.